Good afternoon, folks. It is Micah. We are returning back with Tom Wire, NITA 4, NISET 3. We're going to be having a conversation with Mike LeBate, who is an active duty Army Prime Power Bubba, living the dream daily. And we thought this was an awesome opportunity and forum to basically take it from a person transitioning from the military, talking to somebody who is a stud of the NITA world, and Tom, and both of them share an Army Prime Power background. And it's been a while since we've done anything. So, Tom, if you wouldn't mind, just give us a quick rehash: who you are, what you do, what was your background, where you came from, and all that. And the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, hey, it's a pleasure to be here again, Michael and Micah. My name is Tom Wire, NITA 4. I work with CBS Field Services. When I was in the Army, I was in the Army for 12 years. 6 of those was as a prime power guy. I got out and I've been doing this for, in the general industry, electrical industry for about 5.5 years now. And been climbing my way up the ranks and doing the part that I can to spread the wealth via LinkedIn and whatnot. That's how I branched out to y'all. And like I said, just a pleasure to be here.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for that. And just a quick refresher for everybody on me. Nothing special here. 23 years in the Navy, E1 to E6, O1 to 04. So I did, in fact, cross to the dark side. Got tired of militarying after a while. I know I'm not as cool as you guys on the enlisted side, so don't hate me for it. But did that, got out, started a retail scrub store, tried just to do something different. That thing is thriving as well, but retail wasn't my space. Long story short, tried retirement for a year, sold an airplane to start the business, and now we're doing staffing stuff. And lo and behold, after a year or so, it's all come back to serving veteran populations. And then my electronics and electrical background tended well to this situation as well. So that's kind of the story on me. And then the star of today's show, anyway, Mike LeBate. Did I get your last name? Is that how you pronounce it, LeBate?
It's LeBite.
LeBite. All right. See there. That's why you got to ask, right? Tell us a little bit about your background, man. How did you get into the Army? How did you come to find Prime Power? I do want to highlight the fact that I believe personally you are killing the game and are the ideal example of being proactive in your showing your expertise prior to leaving the service. And I think that serves you well. So if you can kind of touch on your ideologies, kind of like, or how you got to that. And then basically we'll kind of go from there. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Sure thing. I enlisted in, well, I didn't enlist in 2011. I was in the reserves beforehand, but I went on active duty in 2011 as an interior electrician, the 12 Romeo. And then in 2018, I reclassed to prime power production specialist. So I've been at MOS since then. So what, about 5 years now, approximately. Been all over. I was stationed at Fort Bragg as a 12 Papa. Went to Turkey, came back, been to Saudi Arabia. Now I'm in HHC at Fort Belvoir. Living the dream, just like you guys. And then I'll ETSing next year. My plan is to go to the reserves, to the 249th Delta Company. They're also located in Fort Belvoir. So,
just out of curiosity, I'm not familiar with that particular instance. So you mentioned going to reserves. What kind of obligations do you have from that reserve perspective doing that at Fort Belvoir still?
So that's a good question. So I've spoken to the deco commander, and he said that there's a different option. So one option is you can enlist for a year. There's a year-long contract, basically to see how you like it. And if you don't, you can always end it after that first year. But if you do like it, you can continue. That's what I've been told.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's decent. I like
it. And now, would you still be doing your normal power distribution roles and things like that? Is it, so they're retaining you specifically for that purpose, right?
They are. Yep.
All right. Very, very cool. And then, so, kind of carrying on where you're looking from the reserve perspective, what are you looking to do from a civilian perspective? So
that's a good question. So I know for sure, at least in the near future, I'd like to work for a NITA accredited firm, right? I would like to be a NITA level 4 sooner rather than later. I should be a level 3 before I leave active duty. I'm taking that test this year. So it's just a matter of getting the administrative details taken care of. But once I get to a NITA accredited firm, what I would like to do then is a good question, because I kind of like to do it all. I like diagnostics, so I'm into testing transformers and getting results from dissolved gas analysis and that sort of thing. I do like operating power plants because that too offers a lot of diagnostic possibilities. I've been looking into relay testing because I'm told it's pretty lucrative. Actually, the two domains that I've been told seem to be the most lucrative, I might be wrong on this, I'm not sure, are relay testing and, particularly on the East Coast, cable splicing if you know how to mess with the paper insulated lead cable. I'm told that's pretty lucrative as well.
And this is where I would actually turn the floor over to Tom, who can definitely speak to that. I can talk all day to like what the environment looks like, but Tom is the guru and hence the guy we need to refer that to.
Well, I
Awesome.
appreciate that. I would say a couple things I heard from you was, I know when I was in back in the day, the reserve guys, typically reserve across the military, like they hit the military likes to use the reserve guys and send them overseas, and the National Guard guys, and then the actual guys that are active duty a lot end up not getting nearly as many deployments for some reason. When I was in Prime Power, it was completely the opposite. The reserve guys were the guys that would come in for their 2 weeks, a year, and they would bungle up all the generators and mess them up, and then doing training. And I mean, I'm not trying to pick on them, it's just that you get out of it for so long and things happen, and it's just how it goes sometimes, especially when you try to find a fault and you just haven't been doing it for long enough. And, I don't want to pick on the guys, but I would say that I don't know what their status is now and what their mission and has changed to, and how their support roles are functioning in the battalion now. But I'm just be prepared that it might be a little bit more of saying one thing to get you on board versus doing another later. Just throwing that out there because I mean the military loves their retention. So and when you get out in the industry, the other thing I'll say about what you mentioned is I completely agree with what you're saying. You like to, and I could tell by a lot of your posts that you really do get into a lot of the content. You're heavily invested in the theory behind it, and you can just tell that by how much the keywords that you throw out there. So I kind of resonate with your sentiment about wanting to do it all. But I will tell you that I got out and I was like, yeah, I love operating power plants. Those EMDs with some jacko in the load bank going flip with those little switches, and you're sitting there keeping that thing idle, humming and purring at exactly 60 hertz and bringing on another generator. It feels real good, but unless you have the exact niche focuses in this industry, you're not going to be able to hit all those. This is one of those industries where really you are you can have a good spectrum, but you if you try to diversify too much, you're going to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. And so I learned that really, early on, and I was like, well, why do I focus on the stuff that I know that I am good at, and let's just see where it goes a little bit. And so as a NITA tester, I started stepping back a little bit from the generation side unless I was called upon because of my experience. But I focus a lot more on the NITA side of it. And at the end of the day, usually that pays better too. So there's always that perk as well. But I would say that cable splicing, look, there's a lot of things in this industry that when you get focused and really good at, they pay very well for. And I could definitely see that as one of them, especially when you start getting into the specialized cables, underground, undersea, or the liquid filled splices and all those specialty types of cables, extra high voltage. Relay testing is always a good pay, and commissioning work, anything that's high level tech. Like if you just need someone to go out there and do insulation resistance on some equipment, I mean, I could teach all kinds of guys how to push a button and write down numbers. So, if you need a guy to go out there and actually find the problem for a customer, or run into that situation where he ain't done this before, but his theory is back here and it's oh so big and it gets him through almost every challenge that he has, then those are the guys that end up usually doing very well for themselves.
And Tom, you and I talked about that theory piece of it quite heavily in our previous conversations. You still have the opinion that that technical background and your knowledge of theory is indeed going to carry the day for you across your career. Those fundamentals.
Yeah, you as an individual, absolutely. That theory is going to help you in your career, tremendously. I mean, I've kind of gotten to the point where hiring new people, I'm like, I really want to see a good attitude more than anything nowadays. I mean, you can't replace that. But, I mean, still serious. I mean, you can't, especially with the way the military, the prime power and the Navy nukes are trained, it's absolutely ridiculous compared to, civilian side. They're almost engineers at this point, which is just how much experience and training that you get on the different levels. And, to be as well-rounded as you are. I see other guys come out of the trade schools and they're like, yeah, I know what CTs are. I know what PTs are. And you're like, okay, cool. What about an open delta PT system? You're like, what's that? And like us, we're like, well, it's in all our generators. I've been working on them for a while before I even got out. And so, it's things like that, the exposure that you've already had. And even though we only focus on certain assets in the military, and we do those same DPGDSs, and we do those same step-down transformers, and those same 15 kV cables that we, even though we only focus on the same equipment and the same SF6 switches, those are very standardized equipment in the industry. And having that as a skill set is already setting you above a lot of your peers once you get out. So absolutely. The experiences that you get, even if it's 2 years in the battalion, and then couple that with your training, it's almost irreplaceable. These guys always find a way to succeed.
And a quick question too, and I'm not trying to steal the show there, Mike, but I'm very curious. So, Tom, from your perspective, so Mike mentioned wanting to like perhaps look at going a relay. Or into relay testing specifically, what would you recommend, or what steps would you say, hey, this is smart to kind of, well, yes, indeed. Very cool. But what steps would you recommend? Like, say, if he's looking to do that and wants to get in, he's coming out of prime power, he's done with, looking for his first civilian role. What steps would you say would set him up for success to go specifically into, say, relay testing?
Right. I only showed that for some people who might be watching this and be like, what's a relay? The things that are going to help you the most with relays look, it's a black box. That's the most your customer is going to see. That's the most people are going to see. It's a black box. It's got some buttons on the front. That's cool. All they want to know is does my black box work? And you have to understand the link between the front and the customer and what it's doing. And a lot of that's just it's programming, which is just software based, and the rest of it's just is going to be all theory. You have to understand your vectors, your phasor diagrams. You have to understand how to compute your voltages and your currents, inject those properly, measure your timing, and that's all that relay is going to do. Other than that, it's logic. It says, well, when I get these two inputs and they're good, I can turn this one on only if the voltage is this high, and that's a logic programming, And so you look at that in the software, say, oh, it's designed to do this. Someone, an engineer, put that in there, and you just find a way to test it with your test equipment, prove it on a report, and you're done. So, you guys have you guys still have the MPRTs, or have you upgraded to newer equipment?
So, as far as relays are concerned,
yeah. But what kind of equipment do you guys have in the battalion right now?
So, just recently this changed, but for the longest time, obviously our A10 alphas and bravos, our main generators, our old ones, they use, among other things, Basler's for overcurrent protection.
BE851s.
Yes, that's correct. Those Basler's are pretty decent. They do quite a few things, but we use them as 50 and 51 devices. So we use them for instantaneous protection and time inverse protection. But they do a lot of things. They do breaker failure schemes. They're reclosers. We don't program them to use those functions, but we could if we wanted to.
Sure.
However, we're getting new generators now, or we've gotten some. Our overseas sites have gotten these generators, and our Alpha company in Hawaii has gotten these new units. They're called A10 Deltas, and they are very different from our alphas and bravos. They still use Baslers, but only on the feeders. The rest of the overcurrent protection and even the governing as well is taken over by relays made by Dife. It's a European company. Um, they make both the automatic genset controller and the digital voltage controller for these new units. And so it's new software. It's really nice. That's what I use overseas. Really nice stuff. Great for diagnostics. I can gather, almost thousands of parameters if I really
Right.
wanted to with the software from Dive. So I'm a big booster for them. But that's the new gear that we're using. And all the information is online. Luckily, Dive's pretty good about this. Their manuals are online,
What,
installation manuals, operator manuals. So
if I may ask, what kind of test equipment are you still using? The Mega SMRT and or MPRTs, or what are you
good
using?
question. Good question. So um, here, the battalion still uses SMRT 36s. Overseas, I use a SMRT 46D. Same interface for the most part. I think it has a few more bells and whistles. The 36 is discontinued, and I think in the battalion we're actually buying SMRT 46s now. But overseas, I use a SMRT 46. I've used an Omicron CMC 356. It's quite nice. However, it's brand new software, or it's different software, and so because I have PowerDB on my computer, I have the Mega software. It's just so much easier for me to use Mega equipment. So with my computer that I have here, I can talk to our insulation resistance tester, our S1568. I can talk to our relay test sets, our MRCT, which we use to test our instrument transformers, um, our high pots, our low resistance ohm meters, any
Right.
of the new Mega equipment that can take a Bluetooth connection, I can talk to with my computer, and so it just makes it easier. Not as a knock on Omicron. Omicron has great customer service. I've seen utility companies use their power factor test sets in switch yards. It's good stuff, but it would just be a whole new thing I have to learn. Now, worst case scenario, if I go to a new company and they happen to have all Omicron equipment, that's fine. I'll just learn the new system. I think I forgot what the name of it is, but that's okay. Whether it's Doble, I've used Doble overseas too. I've got Doble Test Assistant on my computer. It was a little more of a hassle to get a hold of it because Doble is shyer
Yeah.
than Mega.
Yeah. They don't like to
The
share. They
but
don't like to. They don't like to play nice or
yeah,
anything. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think their very first power factor test sets you weren't allowed to purchase. You can only lease them. I think that changed. I think, but they're very secretive in the beginning. But they offer a lot of information. I've done their
Yeah.
seminars. They're like the world leader when it comes to
If I could,
data on transformers and stuff
if
like
I
that.
could
So
shed some light in that and clip it, maybe wrap up a little bit of the technical side of everything. I'll give you a perspective of where I came from. Now, before I get into it, though, the Doble, their name is so well known in the industry. Them and Megger that once they got your credit card info, then they're very happy. But then you try to submit a support ticket. And sometimes that process is painful. But I would say that it just shed some more light and maybe give you a little bit of information on how I transitioned. When I was back in Prime Power, all we had was the MPRT, and I don't know if you still have that guy around, but that's the old big honking chonking, guy that sings and sounds like a server when you turn it on. It's about this wide, about this tall, with a big handle on it, big and heavy. Comes in a big silver box, and that's what we were testing our Basslers with. They had a Pulsar too, but that's old school technology before my time, and it was still working, but it was kind of temperamental. So the only thing I really got exposure to was the software for the MPRT. We didn't have an SMRT when I first started. About 2 years in the battalion, we got an SMRT, and we actually had a whole lot of nice Mega equipment. But we got it then, and then so I was using the online the little STVI, which is a little handheld, and
yep.
all of our reporting we would do manually. So we would record it and put it in the computer. Now the nice thing about the new software is you just click print and it makes your report. You just got to put your header information in, right? So I would say that you've gotten a lot better off than we did. And there's a good reason that I'm leading and I'm saying this too, is because, when we went to do insulation resistance on transformers, the PTs, the TTR rate, the motor testing, or, all of those insulation resistance and test values, TTR, whatever it was, we would have to record that manually into our reporting and submit that to the battalion. When I got out, the only thing I knew how to run software-wise was to connect to the Basler. Everything else we did manually, right? So when I transitioned out, the first company I went to work for, they had a lot of Omicron stuff and they had Power DP. And so I had to learn everything on the fly. But like me, I'm pretty decent with software and Excel, so I was quick to pick it up. But it's not, and it's a very robust program. Both of them are. And they can really beat you down if you don't know how to use them. And you can be struggling in the field for hours before you find the one damn button that you've been looking for, and you didn't even know that was the button you were looking for, So I would say while you're in, and especially that new relay that you have, the new ones on the Deltas, if I were you, I would, you could test, this is a GE multi-lin. You could test a GE multi-lin today. If you're a relay tester, tomorrow you go out and test, 15 Schweitzers. The next day you test some electromechanicals. And so you have to be very versatile with other types of software. So if I were you, before you get out and you want to get into relay testing, I would recommend that you look at those, the software, you start to familiarize yourself with things. You get the Basslers, become familiar. A lot of Basler software is all the same. Tabs are all the same up top. I mean, they standardize their software a lot. But start to see the differences between them. Start to see how they structure things in one versus the other. And then that'll help you learn other softwares. So that way, when you're testing a Schneider relay or you're testing an Eaton IQ relay or something like that, you're more rounded to be able to find the solutions to your problems. I just can't figure out what element's blocking me. It just keeps tripping when I'm doing something else. Well, it was under voltage. It was blocking you the whole time. Go to this pane. It's on the other pane. Click the little check mark, turns it off. So things like that, and then knowing how to run the software. Omicron is very good software. By the way, that CMC 356 is one of the most powerful amplifiers for relay test sets. Manta has good ones too, but I haven't used the Manta test system yet. Doble and Megger have some very low power amplifiers. Not picking on them. It's just the hardware that's in the equipment. So learn your equipment, learn the software, become as well-rounded and versatile as you can before you get out, because that's going to develop your career, and that'll set you, when you start doing those hiring and interviews and everything, they're going to ask you questions. They're going to say, so have you used PowerDB? Yes. Well, how do you structure your trees for your clients inside of that? And then if you can answer that, or if you could say, if they say, well, how do I turn off the 50-51 protections? I have a Schweitzer relay. Okay. How do I make it communicate when my cord's not working? I plug it in. It worked on that GE relay. Now it doesn't work here. Oh, it's DB9 connection. Those little things that people will ask you during interviews just to test you, to find out what sets you apart versus the other guy they're interviewing. So if you can start to, run into the challenges, push your limits and figure it out while you have that free taxpayer money to do so, I would absolutely do that.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of slide in here as well. So we mentioned not everybody's even knows what a relay is. Where would you utilize that skill set of relay testing? What industries does that fall into? What are the opportunities out there for somebody that's in relay testing?
So I'll start down here and I'll move up, right? The relay is essentially the relay, if you look it up, it's a device that will operate when you give it a set condition, right? So if you have a relay in your car, those are all 12-volt relays. They get 12 volts, they turn on. Bam, that's all they are. This relay right here, this is set to operate when you program it to a certain current threshold. It will close contacts on the back, and that trips the circuit breaker. You can have other relays that are logic programmed, so that way they can actually operate a whole bunch of equipment and bring a solar farm up or down. So that there's different types of relays, different manufacturers, different designs for how they're installed. Some of them are this big, some of them are this big. There's all different kinds. But you'll see them in all different kinds of applications. You'll see some of them for low voltage all the way up to high voltage. You'll see some of them installed just as an auxiliary contact, because this relay, the back contacts can only close under 5 amps. Well, that circuit breaker's trip coil takes 40 amps impulse. So it'll smoke these contacts. So what they do is they have this one operate a smaller little aux relay, but that one is designed only just to turn on, and when it turns on, it can deliver the higher current. So there's different relays, use them different design concepts to make the scheme work, but it could be for low voltage, medium voltage, high voltage, protection based, auxiliary based. You'll see them in hospitals. You'll see it anywhere that there's a power system. Basically, you'll see relays. Relays can also be used to operate pneumatic systems, steam plants, all kinds of stuff. So that pretty much nailed that one down, I think.
I think so. And now, what environments would you see them working in? Data centers, hospitals,
All of it.
Substations?
Yep. Usually in the
lot
basements of
travel?
all of those.
Okay. Gotcha. Sorry, that was just me opining more to make sure that everybody, because I know that you guys can talk at a very upper level, but not everybody in the audience will understand
Right.
that. So I wanted to kind of bring
We
it
were
in tune.
downtown Nashville the other day, and they their first floor has a whole bunch of
I love show and tell with Tom.
has a whole bunch of these guys in there, and then you go up a few more floors, and it's just distribution. Every third floor or whatnot in these giant high rises. Every third floor is the maintenance floor, and that's where all the power goes from the first floor all the way up, and then it stops here, branches out, and then you go up, and it's operated by a different client. And they have all these ones because they afford more, so there's just a bunch of different relays and different manufacturer styles, older technology, newer technology. And a lot of it just comes down to one thing, and that's money.
Yep. Absolutely. Awesome. And Mike, I want to make sure that we're at about a half hour, coming up on a half hour here. So I want to make sure that we address too any of those concerns that you have while you're getting out, right? So, and then kind of what I want to highlight is the fact that you are all over social media. I enjoy seeing your content. You're doing a lot of that show and tell type stuff, showing your expertise, and have noticed it since I turned myself into this, the power distribution, NITA and Prime Power. And I always enjoy taking in your content. So what is your underlying premise, your reason? What is your framework? How do you get to putting out what you do? Or is it just kind of like, hey, this is some cool stuff we're working on, let me share it with the world? Or is it something a little bit more intentional than that?
So originally, it wasn't a conscious decision to pad the resume. I just wanted to report what I was doing. So it just struck me as important. Because I was doing so much, and I thought to myself, well, this should be archived somewhere, right? Regardless if I have an audience or not. So I started it in 2020 after I got back from Turkey, and then just sort of blew up from there. But yeah, and plus I consulted also, because some of those tasks I do and redo, and I'll forget about a torque spec or a voltage level. And so instead of having to go through a manual again, I'll just go through that post that I did or posted a year and a half ago, doing the same thing to see, okay, what was that torque spec again? What was that test voltage again? So it's beneficial in a wide variety of domains, and I'm trying to expand it not for me, but for USACE, for a battalion, because we're trying to recruit for 12Ps, and it's very difficult. I just came back from a trip from Fort Hood 2 days ago, or now Fort Cavazos, with our battalion sergeant major and our battalion commander. And as part of that trip, we were trying to recruit soldiers to become 12Ps in Texas. And I mean, that's fine. I don't mind doing that. It was a good trip. But trying to recruit is a multifactorial, is that a word? Multifactorial endeavor?
It is.
And so it should combine things like social media. But yeah, it didn't start out as a conscious decision. But I'm trying to get the battalion to have its own IG page where they can post things on a regular basis, to put themselves out there. I was talking to someone the other day who wasn't in the military, and I said, why is it that you're not in the military, but you know who the Navy SEALs are, right? Why is that the case? Well, it's
Right.
because the Navy SEALs have fantastic PR, right?
Yes.
There's movies, there's books. You can't avoid them. They're everywhere. Now, no one's going to make movies about prime power production specialists. Not going to be worth watching,
I agree.
but
I would watch it. I would watch it, Mike.
I would watch it.
maybe
Tom would watch
to
it.
critique it. But we have to have an alternate. And so if the battalion has a presence on social media, they can show, and not just posting generic army things like here's us going
Right.
to the range or here's us doing maintenance. No, like prime power esque things that might be able to help them find more people. So
I agree.
social media has been a new concern of mine lately.
I can really appreciate your approach, and I think it's very, very cool that it started very organically and more as a chronological record of what you're doing and something that you can re-reference, and then it's kind of spinning. And I'll tell you, just from a recruiter's perspective, like you're out there, you're in front of everybody, so doing that on behalf of USACE and pushing on that end of things is definitely helpful. And I agree with you. That's kind of why I'm very much similar in the construct and the why behind what we're doing. It's like a lot of it's the awareness. Electrical power technology engineering background and fire control in the Navy. I didn't know what field service engineers were or did even up to the day that I got out, And so this is just a really awesome way to kind of spread that knowledge. And I think you're doing a great job of doing that for USACE and Prime Power, and definitely keep that push up. And then Tom, you also, obviously, that's kind of, it's even open up opportunities to connect with Mike with you, and then Tom with you, obviously, because I found you guys via your content and thought what you were doing was really cool and reached out and we had conversations. And it's because it is the giving back of the knowledge. So kudos to you, man. And I do think you'll find that it's going to serve you well as you transition, because it's sheerly a matter of being known, right? There's a lot of great techs out there, great knowledge, tons of everything, but it's like the old art of sales. If they don't know you exist, nobody's going to buy your stuff, right? So it applies from a candidate outlook and perspective as well. So kudos to you, man. And what do you think, Tom?
There's a double-edged sword there. Like for you, absolutely, it's great for your career, right? But for the battalion, it's a double-edged sword, right? They're looking for recruiting, but they're also advertising how awesome their own guys are to all the testing agencies who pay way more than the military. So it's a double-edged sword,
Yeah.
I don't blame them, but it is very prestigious to be part of the 249th, especially from an Army point of view. The Navy guys will sit there and talk down about it because they're Navy nukes, but let them have it is what I'd say. Regardless, it's not going to hurt your career at all. And I absolutely promote anyone to, 1, spread their knowledge, 2, branch out their network, and 3, prove what they're worth. When you are transitioning out of the military, if you don't, prove what you're worth beforehand, it's going to bite you in the butt after. So it's all part of having your plan, which I think might be a good transition into the next part.
What part do you speak of? What part are we talking about?
Getting into a plan after you get out of the military.
Yes, very, very much so. So, yep, we did. I thought I paused there for a second or muted. So we did kind of talk through that, and you had already kind of touched on the relay aspect of it. You're setting up now. I guess kind of touching on what are your next steps other than the reserves and kind of getting. I know we originally touched on that for a moment, but bringing that back. What's next?
Well, I've given my resume to a few NITA companies, and I started moonlighting with one of them because I'm always available to work on weekends and during the week if they need me.
That's awesome.
And that helps me get involved with equipment that I'm not used to. So operating the same Army generators and switchgear makes you maybe complacent, and me being able to work with switchgear from different firms, different relays, working with ABB, working with GE, working with Siemens, a lot of Siemens equipment I've been working with on the outside of the Army. That's helped me, prep myself, because I know for a fact it's not all about Baslers and, the old textbook stuff that we're used to in the battalion. It's a wide variety of things I have to get used to. As a matter of fact, I think, Tom, you spoke too soon when it came to the differences between relays and their test sets. One of the things you may know who Chris Werstiak is. He's like the relay testing guru. I've got two of his books. He has a relay testing academy online that I've signed up to, and in one of the modules he talks about how I think nearly almost every relay test set company uses their own phasor diagram. So some companies will do the positive 360 degrees, some do positive 180, and then negative on the other end. Some go backwards. And so this is the sort of thing I want to encounter now
Right.
when it's comfortable, as opposed to day one having to deal with it at a company where they would like for me to know it beforehand. So, so one thing I'm doing is I'm prepping myself beforehand. So we've got a litany of one good thing that we've got going in the battalion is we've got a lot of test equipment. We've got millions of dollars worth of TMDA, and they have a lot of money, and they're pretty easygoing when it comes to ordering new things. And so I've got cable fault locators. I've got the all manner of low resistance ohmmeters, transformer ohmmeters. We've got power factor test sets, believe it or not. And I know we had one, but we do have one at the company. Well, not our company, but our sister company. I just tested a bunch of molded case breakers with our primary current injector the other week. A lot of equipment that is just gathering dust. I was asking my colleagues, I'm like, is this stuff like mantelpieces, or are we supposed to use this? Because it's out there and it's available. We got thermal cameras. I grab our thermal camera sometimes and I just go on post and I take photos of random utility poles.
Those are some of my favorite ones out there, by the way. The ones where you're doing your thermal is awesome.
Yep.
It's such a textbook thing to do. Like the thermal image with the two phases are okay and one phase is super hot. That's too easy to do. And that because I'm seeing it so often, it's making me think that it occurs way more than we realize. But we've got so much equipment that the sky's the limit. So, and I feel like if it's in the tool room and we've purchased it, I want to know how it works. And we also have that MPRT you were talking about, Tom.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw that in the tool room the other day. It hasn't been calibrated in years, but we still have it. We also have an SR at Bravo Company. We had an SR95.
Yeah, that's old school.
Really heavy.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of auto transformers inside of there.
Yes. Really heavy. Great for a workout.
Yeah.
Excellent tool for.
Yeah, that MPRT ain't light either.
It's in a armor reinforced.
Yeah,
box.
a big silver box. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we got one here in my shop. Everyone's like, that thing is garbage. I'm like, man, I grew up on this. Like,
yeah, I would do it. Yeah,
I got networked into my laptop and everything. It's updated. It's good.
The equipment I use an older FLIR camera because our newer one has focusing issues.
Right.
The older one is from 2008. That still works.
Yeah.
It still works. And why? I'm doing substation maintenance in October with the battalion, and what an opportunity to do more of this work. We don't do it enough when it's organized, but I volunteer for gigs. So another example. So at Bravo Company at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty, people on post, a lot of the units actually had ground resistance testing as part of their building inspections. They needed to get done. And they would call up the Directorate of Public Works to get it done, DPW. And then DPW would give them our phone number. And so we'd have the office going, hey, we have this Air Force hangar that wants their ground resistance testing done. Who wants to do it? And I'm like, oh, I'll do that. That's too easy. So I'll grab our equipment. I'd take somebody with me, and then we would do lightning protection. Usually the two went hand in hand, especially if it involved ordnance. We would do the lightning protection system, test for low resistance, do ground resistance testing, 3-point tests. If I could use the clamp-on method, I'd do that as well because it's easy. But there's jobs that are available. Also, Bravo Company, we worked with our utility company, PwC. We used their pole yard to do training for lineman work. They had de-energized substations that they would use for training for their guys. and they would let us use those substations for training. So there's always opportunities available. It's and plus if you get deployed overseas, operating sites elsewhere, again, if that's where you get a hold of the new equipment, that's where all the money is, and still, that's more opportunities for operating and maintaining, and for getting diagnostics too. Diagnostics is another thing I'm getting involved in because I don't like unpleasant surprises, and so with the equipment that we have is incredible, right? It's seriously underutilized. It's like we're using like 20% of the the potential that we have. So and it's free. It's free. So,
I like it.
yeah.
Well, gents, we are at 40 minutes and we're rocking and rolling. So, and I'm trying to make sure that we somewhat stick to a framework. So I'll kind of like let this last little section kind of come. Mike, you got Tom. Tom's been jamming this NITA game for a while now, obviously. What questions are at the top of your mind for, just anything with regards to your transition steps? Does anything come to mind? It sounds like you're doing all the right things. You're out there, you're getting a little OJT and doing some moonlighting, if you will, which is automatically definitely padding your resume in a good way. So I think you're set. But it's your opportunity to kind of pick the brains of Tom, who's been rocking this game for a while. What concerns do you have, if any?
That's a good question. What concerns do I have?
Stumped him.
What concerns?
Got him.
I feel like I'll have a lot of questions once I get out of the Army, once I go to my first company, and then because the impression that I got was with Prime Power we have a big skill set. There's a lot of things that we're supposed to know how to do, but I know when you get in the private sector, it gets compartmentalized. Obviously, as you said, you can't be a jack of all trades. This is it's too complicated. It's too much work. Let's see. Questions that I might have or concerns that I might
Well, if I could chime in for a second, I'll give you time to think for a second if you want.
Go ahead.
I would say that you are doing a good job of prepping yourself for the future. When I got out and I was transitioning, I was looking at, I submitted to a lot of different companies. I didn't even know where I wanted to move yet. And I'm kind of also phrasing this in a way that it doesn't just apply to you. It applies to a lot of veterans, especially Prime Power guys getting out. I was stationed in Fort Hood at the time, working under air defense for that little gathering that Prime Power has with them. And I didn't even stay in Texas, but I didn't know where I wanted to move, so I had to properly plan for that. Giving yourself that additional time before you have to get out. Reaching out ahead of time, tell them, look, I'm getting out in 6 months. Okay. So, and I'm taking 30 days of leave too. So, tell those future employers that you're interviewing with, until then, what can I do? Try to get a plan put together. And then once you find I secured my future employer, almost 90 days before I even moved, that I was already basically signed on with them. So, and then get the ball rolling beforehand, have a plan. I'll tell you what, it makes your transition 10 times easier if you have a structure developed. You're like, I know what the end goal is. And so all you have to do now is just make the rest of the pieces fit in that end goal versus going blindly into it. Then, with a family and everything else behind you, it becomes very stressful. So transitioning's already a challenge as it is. You don't need to transition, possibly move, change employers, and change your entire life structure all at the same time going through a dark tunnel. So, be fruitful about it. Try to get as much as you can beforehand and strengthen it out. The other thing I would say is you mentioned about going into your next company dark. I'll say no matter, I think Micah can definitely agree with this. It doesn't matter what you do. As soon as you get out of the military and you go into your next job, or if you go from one job to another job, the first 30 days, you're pretty much going in dark, and it's going to be a struggle regardless. You're learning new systems, new people, new time scales. You're learning how to do your time cards. all insurance programs are changing. Your entire life is going like this. So it's going to be a challenge. The best thing you can do mentally is tell yourself beforehand that it's going to be, what can I do now to alleviate that before I'm in that position? And the stuff that you're doing is flat out, it's along the right track. Like getting out there, spreading your name, showing people what you're worth. And that way, those interviews they just magically happen to get into your inbox, like it's stuff like that, man. And I highly recommend that everyone does it for themselves, not for prime power, or the military and everything. Those are all great reasons to do it. But I mean, you got to take care of yourself first and then take care of others. Otherwise, you can't take care of anyone. So that absolutely keep doing what you're doing. And I think it's a good thing.
And did you come up with any questions for us, Mike, or you feel like you got a pretty good handle on it?
I think my questions might be like inside baseball questions. I have like more, I don't know, more technical questions, I suppose.
I don't care. You can ask specific, something that no one else is going to know what we're talking about other than two prime power guys, or ask something about a theory. Don't hurt my feelings one bit.
It's our show. We'll put it out there anyway.
I will tell you, this is not a question, but this is more of a comment. I will tell you this. Tom, you made a remark on LinkedIn the other day about the value of this sounds banal, but the value of reading. That resonated with me because I found that, of course, the practice matters, getting involved matters, but what's made it all make sense and what's enabled me to be consulted by others is the theory, right? Because what I found that it seems to me that many, if not most people in this line of work, I suspect are in over their heads, because this is very detailed work. It's very technical, right? And it's hard for people to identify whatever they need to know, like the full scope of what they're trying to identify. And so I found that just getting into like relay testing, purchasing books, like on LinkedIn, downloading free books, learning about theory, that's helped me quite a bit. And so I just want to echo that point. That really that resonated with me. And some of it's dry, the theory. Some of it's really boring. Some of it's like Ambien, frankly. If I want to fall asleep, I might read a technical manual. But it definitely helped me out quite a bit.
I'll say I had a coworker in the past, and he said, I was working with them in Virginia on a job doing commissioning on a medium voltage substation, and one of the other contractors there said to me, he's like, "How do you know all this stuff, man? Like, you're young, like you're good at your job, you're finding all the issues that no one else even knew about. How do you do this? Like, what kind of training do you have?" And I was just thinking to myself, I don't really have any training, but yeah, I didn't think too much about it, because I was just doing when you're in the military, you're just doing your job. That was my job. I was supposed to go to school. It's not like I personally invested in my own school, like I was told, no, I'm reclassing to prime power. That's my job now. I'm going to get trained on that, but I don't consider that like college or, anything like that, even though they give you college credits for it. Maybe I didn't think too much about it, but you're absolutely right, man. And every new hire that I bring on, I tell them, I don't care if they've had 10 years, 20 years, 0 years experience. I say, hey, here's Meggers, a stitch in time. And then I say, here's Meggers getting down to earth. Okay. And be like, I work with Mose Ramey, and he likes to bid a lot of ground testing, right? It gets our foot in the door, and that's what he likes to do. And so, getting down to earth is all about ground testing and a ton of different techniques. And then a stitch in time is all about insulation resistance. And that is our bread and butter job. If the insulation is not good, it goes boom. And that's what the customers know. So if you can do these bread and butter jobs and you make them part of your skill set where you're just absolutely phenomenal about them, then I mean, that right there, you've already stepped above all the entry level guys and some of your peers.
And I would like to highlight too, man, that's applicable across the spectrum as well. And one of those things I always highlight, you always have to be learning something new. And I think what's very cool about you guys' specific situation is y'all eat, live, and breathe power. I can tell whenever I talk to you guys and power distribution and the testing, like you guys geek out on it. And that's what you have. You have a passion, and that's driving you to want to learn more about it, much aligned with myself in marketing and sales and biz dev. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff that like I geek out and, spend 8 hours a week reading or listening to podcasts over. And that's how you do, like Tom said, you differentiate yourself from the crowd by doing that. So I think you guys are both, just awesome folks and setting the example for many out there. And that's not to float your boats by any stretch. I just think you're both doing it well. And again, as always, thank you guys for sharing your time and stuff. And sharing your knowledge and just thank you. So it was very, very cool. Tom, what do you have, man? Last minute, or actually, let's start with Mike. Any last minute words of advice, questions, anything come to mind as we get ready to wrap this thing up?
I'll just be assertive. Really, that's helped me out. That's a virtue that's worked for me. Is just being assertive. We've got the assets available, and so why not take advantage?
Absolutely. Would you say assertive would also be action driven? You know what I mean? Like you're not hesitating. You're hopping out there and getting it done. So I use assertion, and I don't want to misconstrue it, but to me that's action driven. You see the problem, you identify the problem, you address it. You're forward thinking and trying to drive on. So it's really action. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right, Tom, what you got, my friend?
I must say,
Close us up.
Mike, you're doing a good job. Keep doing what you're doing. And then to everyone else who's, I feel like part of this get together was about helping other veterans and how they can transition out as well. And to all of them, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. The more you go ahead and prepare yourself, the less work you have to do in the future. And sometimes you might find out, I wasted my time. I didn't have to do that. But don't think that that's going to apply to every situation. Absolutely prepare. And in worst case scenario, it puts you ahead of all of your peers. And that's not a bad position to be either. So keep doing what you're doing and keep fighting the good fight. Read. Self-development is going to carry anyone's career. So keep going.
And then I'll just wrap out, man, saying I agree with everything and really want to reemphasize as a closing point the fact that you've really leveraged your social media presence to put yourself out there and how important I believe personally that is in setting out on a proper course or path, if you will, as you get ready to transition. So if I have one key takeaway is recommend everybody go check out Mike's page, see what he's doing out there, and kind of that'll give you an opportunity to showcase your abilities and, like I said, grow that audience. And networking to me is one of those critical core components of being successful in a job hunt as well. So kudos to you, man. And as always, Tom, man, thanks for coming on, sharing. We'll have to do something here. I know we have another couple of folks in the queue that are interested in coming on and spreading the love. I'm trying to give the biomedical folks a little love, then the Prime Power Bubba some love, then the Nukes some love. So, but keep on my butt, and we'll keep Prime Power at the top of it as well. And gents, truly thank you both for your time today. It was an awesome, awesome conversation, and we got it short, right about an hour. So cool stuff.
Yeah, maybe once Mike gets out, he can we revisit and see how things went for him.
Yeah,
I think so, dude. Like a little before and after type thing. I think that'll be good. So let us know when you're ready, man, and you can hop back on here and we can do that.
By all means.
All right, gents. Well, thanks again for everything, and we'll catch you on the flip side.